Joining me now to discuss further, former NASA Administrator Jim Bridenstine is joining us once again, along with Professor Avi Loeb, the Director of the Institute for Theory and Computation at Harvard University. Thanks to both of you for being with us.
Good to be here.
Thanks for having me.
So, Dr. Loeb, I feel like the image that we're getting out of NASA right now is perfect for your title, Theory and Computation. That's a lot of computation going on, I think, as we look on at the screen. I'm hoping you can see it too, sir, but the astronauts have been prepped. It appears they're in their seats. There is a whole lot of controls. That is way too much for my simple math brain. But, sir, walk us through what's happening here on the screen.
Right. So, I mean, this is an amazing feat that for 54 years, we've been waiting for. I'm 10 years older than that, and but there are many people that were born after the last long flight into space, and it's really inspiring for humanity to contemplate going to space. And I hope it will open a new page in our space exploration. Of course, settling people on the moon, but going beyond that, there are discussions of Mars. There might be space platforms that carry humans to long journeys. Altogether, I think we should not keep our minds only on what happens on this rock that we were born on.
Right.
We are often engaged with what happens here on Earth, but through geopolitics. But it's far more inspiring to go out there because that would obviously be important for the long-term survival of humanity going to space. Now, what we are seeing is, of course, there are lots of details about the maneuvering of the rocket and how to engage with the data that comes in, and that involves computers nowadays that are far better than were used 54 years ago. We have much better technologies, but we've never practiced them in recent history, and that's the significance of this Artemis 2 launch. And of course, it will be followed by additional launches, Artemis 3, and eventually settling on the moon, bringing a nuclear reactor there, also establishing infrastructure and perhaps scientific endeavors that, the moon is much better platform for. There is no atmosphere there. There is no seismic noise. So there are many benefits going there. And obviously to maintain also the superiority, the technological superiority of the U.S. carrying the torch forward for the entirety of humanity.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that, the importance of getting back there first, right, before anyone else. Jim, I want to bring you back into the conversation. Administrator Bridenstine, we were talking with you, watching the prep go on. And, sir, as you see something, please jump in and tell our audience what you're seeing and what's significant about it. But these astronauts, they are traveling farther from Earth than any humans have really gone before. They're going to pass, the Apollo 13 record of 248,000 miles. That was set in 1970. So this mission is huge, a huge leap forward, not to borrow from the past, the wording, but, big move toward this possible moon landing in 2028 you were sharing with our audience.
I say borrow the language from the past. It's the right language. This is a leap forward. We need to own it. This is a great moment for the United States of America. You can see the astronauts are in those orange spacesuits. They've got their helmets on. That's because when this vehicle launches, it is a pressurized capsule and it's going into the vacuum of space. But if it loses pressure, you've got the backup system, which is your spacesuit. And those orange spacesuits are, of course, a safety function. And then, of course, you've got, of course, the screens that they're manipulating. They're doing all kinds of checks and tests. And back in the fire control room, they're communicating with all kinds of engineers and operators that are also going through systems checks and tests. And tonight, I think you said 6:24 is the time. It's going to launch to space. Now, it's also true those orange spacesuits are not the same spacesuits you would use to walk on the moon. We do need to go to the surface of the moon. Jared Isaacman, the current NASA administrator, has said we're going to build a moon base. Well, that means we need spacesuits for walking on the surface of the moon. It's an entirely different spacesuit, and of course, which is also different than a spacesuit for a general spacewalk. So. But we're going to learn all kinds of things on this flight. The astronauts, of course, are going to test the control systems to make sure that they can do what's called rendezvous and proximity operations, ultimately for the purpose of docking to a human landing system that can go down to the surface of the moon And we're going to be testing all of the ways that we live and work in space for a period of 10 days, well beyond the Van Allen radiation belt into deep space where there's some harsh radiation environments. But it's only a 10-day mission, but they're going to learn lots of data about the radiation environment around the moon as well.
Bring back that data and hopefully get us prepped for 2028. Dr. Loeb, I have about 30 seconds left, sir. Just speak, if you will, and close us out as you look on at the screen, the importance of this mission, what you hope it brings, and perhaps the energy in the space race that it brings to all of us.
Right. I mean, the U.S. definitely has to win the space race. This is inspiring for all humans on Earth. As of now, we are only contemplating round trips. But in the distant future, there will be humans that will go to these destinations on a one-way ticket. And that would be a very different trip, and hopefully they'll have the infrastructure, the resources to stay there for a while and develop technologies and infrastructure that are really at the forefront. And as of now, we haven't used, for example, artificial intelligence in space. We can start using that in the coming years.
Takes you to a whole other level, doesn't it? Jim Bridenstine and Professor Avi Loeb. Great conversation, gentlemen. Thanks for walking us through this really spectacular day and these images here out of Cape Canaveral. Artemis 2.